That's all my French. Because I was educated in Ireland. That's as good as Irish language education goes. Sorry about that. First of all, huge round of applause for JP and his whole team who've made all these brilliant cocktails for you. Guys, thank you. What you're drinking is a cocktail called Antebellum from a bartender named Jimmy Palumbo of Bell Shoals, a new bar in Brooklyn in New York from the same owners as the bar you may have heard of called Seamstress. So this is Grand Marnier, Amontillado sherry, lemon juice, a little bit of Tiki bitters, and coconut water syrup. It's normally served in a mason jar with a couple more charred marshmallows on it, and the Grand Marnier bottle actually clipped upside down in the liquid. It's a brilliant presentation. The guys have done a great job, so thanks, chaps. So, global trends, global trends. This is my Global Trends 2016 presentation, which is very similar to my Global Trends 2015 presentation with just a couple of extra slides. See, the thing is, most trend presentations are bullshit, right? Because you already know what the trends are. If I came up here and I said, well, the trends are classic cocktails, fresh juices, and small glasses, you go, you know, what you want to hear about is wild and crazy loopy shit. And that's what I'm going to tell you about, right? From all around the world. Some of these things I really do believe are trends. All of them might become trends. Some of them in unusual and different parts of the world. I'm actually, and this is really weird for me, I'm going to be making a couple of these drinks, right? This is only weird if you don't know me. The only person I make drinks for these days usually is myself. But I'll be making some of the fantastic drinks of my friends and colleagues like Alex Catena and Antonio Lai and Mike Minka here today to show you that so long as you have JP and a team of 5 people and hours of mise en place, there's absolutely nothing you can't make in your bar. So the first trend, I think, is collaboration. The first trend is having batteries in your fucking clicker. Seriously. What we have noticed over the last few years is that collaboration with bars and bartenders has reached a new high. You can now depend on it at the same level that chefs, for instance, can. If you go into a supermarket, there will be Heston Blumenthal's range of desserts or another chef's sauces and stuff. Perhaps you're familiar with a bar in New York called the Dead Rabbit. Before they opened, they commissioned Orinoco bitters from Adam El Megarab, who is a Scottish ex-bartender who now makes bitters. And the story's really complicated. This block in New York, Water Street in the financial district, where the Dead Rabbit is located, is actually the oldest city block in Manhattan. Manhattan grew up from the bottom to the top, from the south to the north. And on that block, there was once a producer who made an Orinoco bitters, and they were replicated for the Dead Rabbit. So the Dead Rabbit opened being able to make unique drinks that nobody else could, but it also had something that played very much into its own history. And they sell the bitters as well as, you know, their t-shirts and their menus and stuff. And their merchandising sales are more than the sales of most craft cocktail bars. So they do very well with that. Another example is Evil Twin Brewing. I think many of you will have heard of them. They're a great little, well, medium craft brewery. And when the Nomad Bar opened in New York, They wanted to really up their beer game, and they wanted a great beer for in cocktails. Usually in beer cocktails, you have to build the cocktail around the beer. They wanted a beer that could almost substitute for lemon juice, so they made the Nomader Weiss, a wheat beer that's so sour and sharp. It's delicious, but you can use it instead of lemon juice in a cocktail, and it's great. And it's commercially sold in a normal way by Evil Twin Brewing. My friend Monica Berg cooperates with the Himcock Bar Distillery in Oslo in Norway. This is widely seen as being one of the most beautiful distillery cocktail bars that's opened in the last year or two. And they make a wide variety of aquavits according to her specifications. Some are aquavits, classic aquavits, and they try to promote the entire aquavit category. So their collaboration is very much identifiably with Monica Berg, one of Norway's most famous bartenders. And it is also, in fairness, good for her as well, to be able to learn how to distill and to create her own products. A final one is that you may have seen the famous bartender Eric Lawrence's bar tools collection, the birdie shaker and mixing glass and spoon. This is because he was dissatisfied with what he saw as the poor quality of Japanese bar tools, because most Japanese bar tools that we buy are actually Chinese. They're made in China. There's nothing wrong with China, but the fact that they weren't authentic really annoyed Eric. He's one of those guys. So he partnered with a Japanese company to produce these bar tools in Japan and sell them. They're very high quality. It is literally his signature range. Perhaps the most interesting thing, collaboration-wise, I've seen in a while was in Russia, of all places. I was in Yekaterinburg, an old-fashioned bar, which is a bar, speakeasy style, hidden behind a bookcase in an art gallery. It's like, yeah, like that, right? And it was great. It was really, really great. It was full of all the same assholes like me drinking cocktails in there and taking photos of them, right? And all the guys had beards, just like here. So I'm looking through the menu, and it's a really, really good menu. But the menu could almost come from any good craft cocktail bar, except when I got to these two pages. It said, branded cocktails. And then I looked at the rest of the menu. All throughout the rest of the menu, it didn't mention the brand names of the gin or rum or vodka or whiskey that they were using. On these two pages, one says Finlandia cocktails, one says Bacardi Martini cocktails. They said, straight out, these are branded and sponsored cocktails. And I thought, that's so clever. It's so really clever. Especially in the US, most bars don't talk about their relationships with liquor companies. In Europe, it's the exact polar opposite. You can take big bags of cash from drinks firms and have every single brand name on every single cocktail in your menu sponsored. Totally no problem. But no one talks about it. Consumers love this. They love knowing, oh my God, a whole page of Finlandia vodka cocktails, great. Or a whole page. We forget that consumers are not cynical about brands. There really are people who roll in and they'll say, okay, name a famous vodka. Oh my God, you've got a cocktail with that? I'm so having it. And all the bartenders are like, but the customers are loving it. This is one of the most clever things I've seen. If you have a relationship with a drinks company, I advise you to put a page like this in your cocktail menu. You will be surprised at how positively your guests will receive it. And in the rest of your menu, you can be as cool and independent as you like, because you have this. There is a huge question about what's called pay to play all around the world now. And the strange thing is that in some countries, like the US, where you have to pay to be stocked in a supermarket, you're not allowed to pay to be stocked in a bar, which is a little weird. And in our world of bars and cocktails, consistently, every time they do the research, 70% of people have not decided what they're going to order by the time they get to the bar. That doesn't just include regular consumers. It probably includes all of us. If it's your night off and you roll up to the bar, the bartender said, "What are you having?" You either go, Negroni, or you're like, I don't know, what am I going to have, right? So it applies to everybody. And being more transparent about our business relationships, catering to customers as well as to ourselves, is a really good trend. And this collaboration thing, totally, as they say, has legs. I don't know if I should even use this fucking thing again. Yeah, it worked. This is an example of a design collaboration. Anyone know where this was first used? The aviary. Yeah. Exactly. The way that the collaboration started off was that a chef called Grant Achatz got a chance to open his own restaurant. And this was his chance. He didn't have any money, but he had a sweat equity deal, the kind of thing we'll be talking about in the seminar later today. And he wanted some unique stuff. And he knew a guy called Martin Kastner. And he and Martin began to collaborate to create truly unique servingware that made the experience of eating completely different. And later on, they opened a great bar called the Aviary in Chicago as well, which combines a bar. It's not actually a bar, there is no bar, but incredible drink services such as this porthole rapid infusion thing with, not everyone knows this, there's actually a very classic speakeasy downstairs that you can get to. And it's, you know, as normal as the aviary is different. Something like this can really transform your drinking experience. And it's clever. If you've ever used one, you fill it up with whatever liquids, herbs, flowers, botanicals you like. It's good to use clear ones, for instance, and it's good to use something clear like verjus instead of lemon or lime juice so that it stays quite clear. But literally, your third or fourth glass out of this tastes really different to your first or second one. It was always designed to be for two people to share, or one very thirsty person. And it has been, of course, so successful that it's almost a cliche now, right, within our world. But this still blows people's minds. And I've put this in the category of collaboration because Martin Kastner now has his own design firm, Crucial Design. They produce in Spain as well as in the USA. And he and his team have become tremendous creative resources. You don't have to go to them with your idea and say, make that. You can talk to them about how you want to transform somebody's experience, and they'll help you to come up with ideas. So collaboration is very much a two-way street. This is a perhaps more straightforward one. Whiskey aged in beer barrels, beer aged in whiskey barrels. There's nothing new about this. It's becoming more and more widespread, this whole barreling in and out trend, and it's a brilliant one. You guys ever heard of a beer called Innis & Gunn from Scotland? Yeah. They started off doing barrel-aged beer because they were asked to do it. They were asked to give some barrels to Grant's Whiskey. Grant's Whiskey wanted to create an ale barrel-aged whiskey. It was called the Ale Cask. Very good whiskey, incidentally. And Innis & Gunn, who were just a regular brewery then, they were like, well, this is really cool. And they started getting whiskey barrels to age their beer in. And now they get whiskey barrels to age their beer in, age the beer in it, then they give the barrel back to whiskey producers, and the whiskey producer ages their whiskey again in a barrel that had beer and whiskey in it. So barrels and barrels and barrels. The interesting thing about this is we are reaching a point where it's going to be very difficult to get barrels. The whiskey industry is booming so much in the US, there is a limited amount of barrel wood available. And you have to age American whiskey in new American oak. You can only use it once. And even with other producers in Europe, in Scotland, France, Ireland, even Germany, there are beginning to be barrel issues. The same way in the rum world there are molasses supply issues. So we'll be seeing some very, very interesting things happening with barrels, ultra-fast aging, hypersonic aging, more specific aging using spirals and things like that. And collaboration also means, I think, communication. So for the Diageo World Class contest last year in Australia, they ran a pop-up of the New York bar PDT for a week at the award-winning Black Pearl bar in Melbourne. They flew the team over, they served all the drinks, they served all the cocktails. This year, they did exactly the same thing with the famous White Lion bar from London, flew them over to Melbourne, put them up in a bar, a different bar, I think, and served the drinks. This kind of creative seeding and cross-cultural mixing is very, very valuable for us. You can go online right now from your phone and you can buy the PDT cocktail book and you can watch videos of Jim Meehan and Jeff Bell and you can read analyses of their cocktails. You can learn every single thing about all the cocktails of PDT, but you can't hang out with Jim or Jeff. And unless you've got the money for a plane ticket to New York, you can't be served by them either. So things like this collaboration is very, very good for our industry. The constant guest bartending, like Nico last night at La Lab did the Mace pop-up, which was brilliant. We'd like to see Nico bartending at Mace in New York a bit more, to be honest. But this kind of cross-cultural collaboration is good because you will never be able to replace personal knowledge of somebody. Otherwise, PDT is just a building with people who make cocktails. You won't appreciate what the soul of it is. From that to this, also known as scaffas, flask cocktails, evening cocktails, or hotel cocktails. Room temperature cocktails are sometimes called hotel cocktails because they're the cocktails you can make in your room, in the hotel, when you have no ice, after a cocktail competition or something like Tales of the Cocktails or Invasion. They're really, really interesting. I see them popping up a little bit everywhere. Are they a trend yet? Possibly not. But they're really, really fascinating. Chris Hanna's Rebenak was one of the first that I saw. It is beautifully judged, and you have to have a very fine hand with the ingredients because there's no dilution. You're not stirring them, you're not shaking them, you're not serving them over ice. So it's the general mold is an aperitif type cocktail, relatively strong, slightly bittered, and with a flavor accent, in this case, given by the dual poles of Averna and Creole shrub. Bear in mind, you might look at this and think, it kind of seems a bit sweet. But remember, there's no dilution going on. Right? Normally, if you were going to dilute a whiskey Averna Creole drink, it wouldn't taste good. And it's a nice experiment to make a room temperature cocktail with and without stirring it over ice. Almost always you ruin it when you serve it over ice. Another drink from a young-looking Bobby Hogle in Anvil in Houston was a Sotol Mezcal cocktail, coincidentally again with Averna. These drinks seem heavily bittered, but they're not in practice. The bitter is providing balance as well. I strongly recommend having a few room temperature cocktails on your menu, at least one or two. They're very good for publicity. By the way, this whole presentation's online. I'll give you the address again at the end, so you don't need to write anything down or take photos. You're welcome to if you like. The only things you need to write down are the things I say, because I say things in a room like this that I would never publish online. So that's the stuff to listen to. So I particularly like this one from, I think it's Nick Caruana, who's a blogger, not a bartender, from Washington, D.C. The Sherry Cynar Bitters thing is absolutely delicious. It's my favorite of all the room temperature cocktails that you'll see here on my screen today. And then no alcohol cocktails. When I was a full-time bartender, I never liked making them. And the reason that I didn't like making non-alcoholic cocktails was I was shit at it. I was really bad. Now, we didn't have all that many ingredients back then, back in the day, but at the same time, I just never really got into it. My friend Alex Cretana, formerly from the Artesian in London, this is one of his cocktails. He has a seminar he teaches called "Is Non-Alcoholic the New Vegetarian?" Right? And it makes a lot of sense. This is from their their second last menu. It's incredibly complex: coffee, elderflower, oak smoke, jasmine, bergamot essence, but it's completely delicious, and they presented it in a laboratory beaker. You may not be aware, but when he and his team were at the Artesian bar, on the menu, you could never see which cocktails were alcoholic or non-alcoholic. And they had many customers that would come in and order in a business setting or perhaps out with their friends. They would order the non-alcoholic cocktails because they wanted the non-alcoholic cocktails and they were delicious, but nobody would ever know. Because normally you have to say, "Oh, do you have any non-alcoholic cocktails?" "Non-alcoholic cocktails, I don't know." "Dave, do we have any non-alcoholic cocktails for little boys?" "Yes." Which, can totally screw up your day, as it were. I ordered a non-alcoholic beer in one of my regular bars a few weeks ago. I said, "I want to have a Klausthaler." And the guy came back to my group and he says, "I've checked and the Klausthaler's non-alcoholic. Do you still want it?" I'm like, "Yeah." So much for flying under the radar. There's almost as big of a trend for non-alcoholic cocktails, like proper non-alcoholic cocktails, as there is for low alcohol cocktails. So low alcohol cocktails are a little easier to make than non-alcoholic ones. This is a legit trend, low alcohol cocktails, for a couple of different reasons. One is you can have 3 low alcohol cocktails compared to 1 or 2 full strength cocktails. Right? You can have 3 reverse Manhattans instead of 2 full-on Manhattans. Number 2 is low alcohol almost inevitably means high profit margin. In New York City, there's actually a bit of a trend for bars to aim for an 81 to 83% gross profit margin instead of the industry standard, which is 75%. And things like this help you to achieve that. There's also the situation that people all around the world are drinking less, and when they're going out, they want more of an experience. They're no longer going out to just get hammered. They will pay for the experience, but alcohol is no longer the foremost reason. What they want is an experience, something they can take a photo of, share with their friends, all that sort of thing. Bartenders also like these because almost inevitably, they use lots of ingredients like sherries, amaros, port, Madeira, things that all of us bartenders love. And they use full-on ingredients, as I call them, like full-strength rye whiskey or nice single village mezcal. They use small amounts of them, like a garnish. Not the base, the garnish. There is a similar debate happening in the world of food. Perhaps you've followed it. Most people would calculate that the world's population is expanding so fast that we are all going to have to go more or less vegetarian, or we will have to swap around the way that we eat. It can no longer be a huge chunk of meat and like a little bit of salad all around. The salad and vegetables will actually be the majority of your food, and the meat will be the garnish. It's a very common thing happening in a lot of Asian cooking already. And we're beginning to see that mentality trickle into us here. So I'm actually going to make this, all right? Everyone's going to be surprised by this, including me. But we have all the ingredients here for a snake charmer. Chaps, I think we need some crushed ice up here. Do we have it over there? There's only about 17 bags of ice against the back wall there. So this is one of Alex's drinks, originally made in a homogenizer, but when I called him last week, he's like, "Dude, you can totally make it in a blender. Like 30 seconds, low speed, Fine. I'm going to start off with a bit of cold press carrot juice. Jigger, that'll do it. A bit of our elderflower cordial. Thanks, chaps. A spot of this. A spot of lime juice. And then just under a bar spoon of our sesame oil. Yeah. So it's important to get food grade sesame oil, not the dirty stuff. And in the absence of a dasher, which I've just realized we forgot, a little bit of orange flower water. There we go. So remember I said it would get noisy. This is the point at which it gets noisy when I turn on the blender. While that's going, there we go. So this is a custom serving piece from a company called Pordomsa in Madrid in Spain. It's a hollow rock, essentially. And they make all the custom work for restaurants like El Bulli and Alinea, all that sort of thing. They've got actually a huge domestic market just in Spain, because the Spanish people are mad for a bit of the old immersive experiences. Just shovel in a bit more here. So I'm unsure of the legalities, but JP, where are you, mate?
I'm here, sir.
So you know what we need now, right? Are we going to do this in the room or?
No, I need to go outside.
Good stuff. So we're going to send JP to the naughty corner. Like this. So the garnish is, I hope this is like local Canadian pine leaves here, right?
It is.
Oh, good. Because otherwise people will be complaining that I'm not using Canadian ingredients.
It's organic.
Oh, organic, excellent, yes. Yeah.
It'll be a big trend in 2017.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, good. I'll put it in my presentation for next year. Where does Philip get his ideas? Yeah.
They do with that?
Yeah, and the jerky.
Want to smoke it first? Or?
Yeah, no, they both get toasted. So what JP is going to do, not in this building, is, because that would be wrong, is take that out and burn the living bejesus out of it with a blowtorch. Right, normally you do that in front of somebody, but this is obviously a pretty spectacular cocktail, but I put it in here because it's, oh, hey, look, hi. It's a low alcohol cocktail. It's just over 35 ml of Grand Marnier, right? It's absolutely delicious and it looks spectacular. And you could charge the same or more for that cocktail than you could for a fully, 2.5 ounces of liquor. Yeah, so you totally didn't use a blowtorch on that out there. I know, lovely. So there we have it. Alex Retaina's Snake Charmer. Delicious. Is it an Instagram-ready cocktail? It totally is, but it's up here because it's a low-alcohol cocktail for which everybody, or indeed anybody, would pay the same, if not more, for as a regularly amazing cocktail. So we'll send that around if you want to have a taste of it. I don't know if we have any straws, guys. JP, if you want to give this to somebody who won't actually steal it, that would be great. Yeah, do we have any straws? That would be good. Lovely. So back to our presentation, if we can, guys. Thank you. So after low alcohol and no alcohol, focused bars. Anyone know who this is? It's Mauro. Very good. It's the always cheerful Mauro Majube from Germany in the Negroni bar. And things like Negroni bars, gin and tonic bars, Boilermaker bars, they have the future as far as I am concerned. Because increasingly, when it takes a 5-minute presentation with a PowerPoint to explain what your bar is all about, you've probably already lost the customer, in my opinion. And customers understand the concept gin and tonic bar, gin bar, whiskey bar, Boilermaker bar so well, so instinctively, or indeed, in the case of Mauro, a Negroni bar. You can have any cocktail you like there, but it's specialized in Negronis. This is a photo, not a very good photo actually, of Boilermaker bar in Melbourne in Australia. Boilermaker bar was inspired by, not Stephen, oh, sorry, wrong slide. It was inspired, I'm going to show you a picture of the bar that it was inspired by. It was called Shady Pines in Sydney. And Shady Pines is this underground, big space, big bar. Probably you could fit like 80 or 100 people there. But the only thing they really serve is beer and shots. All the music is Johnny Cash. And the decoration is like stuffed animals and beer trays. Right? But it's a bit more complicated than that. The staff are all superb. They're ex-Milk and Honey bartenders. They know their stuff. It's not any beer with any shot. There's no fireball, right? What it is craft beer and beautifully made spirits. They will advise you on the way that it combines. That led to the opening of their second bar, the Baxter Inn, which was the full-on whiskey version of that. So it was all whiskey and beer. And then a few more cocktails. And then Boilermaker opened. And the joy of Boilermaker bars is the consumers understand them. What's this bar like? It's Boilermaker, beer and shots. Lovely, let's go. It's quick. It's profitable. You can have beer or a shot or beer and a shot. And that's it. As an owner and an operator, it makes it easier to open. You don't need to spend as long training all your staff. Yet, if you want it to be a great cocktail bar as well, you totally can. So, very narrowly focused bars. In the same way, in the world of food, we see places that only serve cheese sandwiches, or places that only serve dessert, or one of my favorite restaurants is a restaurant called Restaurant Red in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, where I used to live. And they serve steak or lobster, thanks JP, or surf and turf. And that's it. And that means they've only got 2 people in the kitchen for a 40-person restaurant. And that means they actually have a chance of making money at the end of the year, which most restaurants don't. So focus bars are getting a great deal of attention. We probably remember the bad old days of the martini bars. Hopefully they won't come back. But I know myself, I would love to see a few more Boilermaker bars and Negroni bars. So this is a really shitty photo of Stephen Martin. You may have noticed in Paris, there's a huge cocktail boom going on. In fact, Nico's going to be opening his own bar there soon. And there's a lot of bars that are concentrating on French ingredients, like the really excellent Le Syndicat from Sullivan Daw. Well, Stephen was probably the first. He has a great bar in Paris called À la Française, And upstairs is a perfect French brasserie. He actually has a new philosophy and theory of the history of mixed drinks in France, and he serves drinks in accordance with that. But it looks like a beautiful brasserie. And downstairs, he has a really small, intimate, more kind of club space. And he was, as far as I'm aware, the first person to do an all-French spirits bar. And why not? This is Bad Frankie's in Melbourne. I did a guest bartending shift at the famous Black Pearl, and the people of Black Pearl thought that the absolute best way to prepare me for guest bartending in one of the best, busiest bars in the world was to take me to Bad Frankie's and have me try all 262 Australian-made spirits there. I only had a little bit of each one, but at the end of it, apparently my bartending was awesome. That's what I thought, anyway. It blew my mind. They really had about 300 Australian-made spirits in every single category, right? Lots and lots and lots of whiskey, lots of gins, lots of liqueurs. And it was also a really great fun bar to go and hang out in, certainly after about 100 tastings or so. Why not? Why not a Canadian spirits bar? Giving back. I'm kind of a bit cynical. And whenever I see something about, bartenders like raising money for charity, I'm like, yeah, right, bollocks. I don't really believe it, but that's me. I had a difficult upbringing. Giving back is now, it's part of your marketing. In this case, a Hong Kong bar, The Pawn, decided to donate the proceeds of every sale of a cocktail on its menu to a local charity. And you know how that's good for the bar as well? It gets you great press. And your sales will go up. So actually, this doesn't cost you anything. There's been Canadian examples. Negroni Week, which is now really going global, encourages you to have Negronis on your menu and donate whatever you like, maybe $1 a Negroni, to the charity of your choice. So one of the reasons that Negroni Week has grown so quickly is A, Negronis, awesome. 2, it's very open. You can choose which charity you like. You can choose if you give $1 or 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever you like. But doing good is now good business. You're probably all aware of my friends Lynette and Ivy's Speed Rack charity, which, as well as raising awareness of female bartenders and encouraging all the trade and consumers to come together and have a bit of fun and see another side of bartending, donates money to women's charities, normally breast cancer charities, from every event. Also from the sponsorship fees, from donations during the event, from drink sales, if there's drink sales going on. It's a very worthy cause. This is Gary with his finger in a Negroni. By the way, I thought you'd like this. This has nothing at all to do with giving back, but this is the first ever time that Gary finger stirred a Negroni. Right, so this is going down. It'll probably be entered in the Smithsonian Museum in the US or something like that. We were in Cognac in France. Myself, Sean Sewell from Victoria, BC. We had to make 30 or 40 Negronis really quickly, and the bar literally didn't even have a bar spoon. So Sean iced them up. I poured in the liquor. Gaz stuck his finger in. Totally awesome day. 40 Negronis, 4 minutes. But Gaz also is behind Just One Shift, which is a global movement started entirely by himself, encouraging bartenders and waitstaff to donate the proceeds of their tips from one shift to charity. There's an old friend of Gary's who started a charity called Wine to Water, and it's very much a favorite of the mixology community. Wine to Water brings clean drinking water to rural Africa. And so far, they've brought clean drinking water to in excess of 200,000 people, funded entirely by charitable donations. So Gaz's Just One Shift has grown now to have, I don't know how many bars and people participate in it around the world. I think they raised over $100,000 last year. So it is a tremendous thing. And it is part of us to realize that we are very, very fortunate. Even a company that I work with, Tales of the Cocktail, very few people realize that Tales of the Cocktail is the event which is put on by the charitable foundation, the New Orleans Culinary and Cultural Preservation Society. Over the last 15 years, Tales of the Cocktail has donated around $500,000 back into our community of mixologists. That's in cash money, not by painting schools or anything like that, but by paying for people's college tuition, their medical expenses if they get into problems. There has been a spate of armed robberies in New Orleans lately, unfortunately. I don't want to discourage you from coming to Tales, by the way. And Tales stepped in and compensated the staff. They gave them money to compensate them for the tips that were stolen as well, because in the armed robber actually held up the staff for their tips too. So it's a constant part of what Tales does. And in fact, they could probably do better at communicating it. Moving back onto more comfortable ground, perhaps, and perhaps also speeding up. Flavor improvement is something that we sometimes take for granted. We're like, lemon juice, great. You know, whiskey, cool, got it. Has anybody read Liquid Intelligence by Dave? All right, if you didn't put your hand up, write a note to borrow a copy of the book from the people who put their hands up, or buy it. You know, it is incredible. It's like sitting down with Dave for about 3 hours. It is all he has learned and all his research for almost the last 20 years. And it's very funny and well written as well. It is about making your drinks better, using relatively simple stuff that you can buy. You don't need to be taking out an account at a scientific laboratory supply firm. Perhaps one of the most important things that you can do simply to make your drinks consistent is to acid adjust juices like orange, lemon, lime, all your citruses. We all know how important those juices are, and we also all know how inconsistent they are, from lemon to lemon and orange to lime. And you might think, well, you know, we juice 2 gallons of lemon juice and then we go for it. And it's like, great, but the lemons are going to be different the next day. So if you test using a pH strip your juices and then adjust them correctly, your drinks will always taste the same. At least the juice will always taste the same. I'm actually not going to make this or demonstrate it or give you the exact recipe, precisely because I want you to read Dave's book. He is a genuine genius and a lunatic. And this book will, I think, change the way that you think about being consistent and also pushing boundaries in your drinks. So flavors continue to come out. I am consistently still amazed after a very cynical 20 years of traveling the world in this business. I was in a bar called Codename Mixology in Tokyo. There's two. There's one in Roppongi, and I think the other one's over near Shibuya. And the bartender had a rotovap, you know, a low-pressure distillation still. And he was only redistilling vodka with all the flavors that you can see there. So, you know, truffle, and he had a bourbon essence in his vodka, because he wanted all his distillates to have a relatively neutral base, and he wanted to be able to combine his own distillates. And the things that he made for me, like a blue cheese and truffle vodka martini, was just like, fuck, I could not believe it. So the flavors are out there to be discovered and combined by you. And the only thing that constrains you is the way in which you let yourself be inspired. If you look to food for inspiration, it's useful up to a point, but sometimes you have to look in other ways. There is, for instance, a new cocktail menu at Little Red Door in Paris, which has no words. Each cocktail is represented by a painting, a picture. They ask the artist to come in, taste the cocktail, and then create a picture. That kind of creativity is boundary breaking, and it's available to all of us. So, restless palate is a real thing. I know you guys, you're probably all over mezcal. Like, mezcal's last year. Now you're drinking raicilla and bacanora and sotol. We are constantly pushing our own boundaries of what's cool. Is kale still cool? Can we have arugula? Like, can you still even eat meat? Is meat just like totally unfashionable and you might as well stay home and watch Strictly Come Dancing? We have outrageous amounts of wacky fruits, vegetables, herbs, liquors, tools, all available to us. It sometimes means we overlook the basics, okay? But it also sometimes means that we have options we didn't have before. Honey, maple syrup, or stevia, for instance. What if we came up with a new way to sweeten things? That would be amazing. And if it didn't kill you or be too expensive, it would be really amazing. Of course, we still build our flavors around sweet and sour, but sweet and sour has been stuck with sugar and lemon or lime for a very long time. There's other ways to express a lot of our basic flavors. This is a very simple product called cereal milk, invented by Christina Tosi of Momofuku in New York. She noticed that when you have a bowl of cereal, anything, Cocoa Pops, Frosties, the milk at the bottom of the bowl, like when you drink it, the way my mother told me I never should, it's really nice because it's been infused with cereal. Well, she infuses milk with cereal, and they actually sell it as a product, and it makes an amazing White Russian. It's really so good because you've got all those kind of biscuity, grainy flavors of the cereal milk, and then you've got, the proper White Russian flavor profile. It's creamy. It's not too rich. It's genius. And the embarrassing thing is it's so simple. So Tiki has moved on, thank God. A lot of people would say that Tiki's dead, and they'd say, well, look, there's Smuggler's Cove, and there's this bar and that bar, but there's not that many Tiki bars, and it's true. But every craft cocktail bar has a Tiki section or a couple of Tiki cocktails, and they're doing it brilliantly. This is Maxwell Britton, who founded the bar program at Maison Premiere in Brooklyn in New York. It just won a James Beard Award. It's won a ton of awards. And probably their most famous drink is the one in front of them now, which is an absinthe colada. And it's delicious. They spent a tremendous amount of time working on it, really a lot. And you could serve this to your grandmother or your hardcore mixologist mate, and they would both adore it equally. This is my friend Angus Winchester from when he was guest bartending at my bar in Door 74 in 2009. He is a Winchester holding a Winchester. That's a Winchester cocktail, which was created by one of the Death and Company bartenders, Brian, years ago. And it's a gin zombie. It's absolutely delicious. It's in a custom-made Brit Tiki glass with the Britannia shield on one side. And when I say neo-Tiki, I mean the Tiki has moved on. People are creating amazing drinks with Geneva and Aquavit and things that were never in the original Tiki cocktails. But they're Tiki drinks. They are based on layers of flavor. Perhaps the most important Tiki quote is, what one rum cannot do, 3 can. So if a martini or a Manhattan is kind of like listening to a person sing solo or 2 people sing a duet, well, Tiki is like a whole gospel choir building towards a symphony. And it is broken out of the rum prison or straitjacket. We are also seeing lots and lots and lots of really great Tiki bars opening. Has anyone ever worked in a hardcore Tiki bar? It's exhausting, isn't it? It is so hard. I remember the guys who worked at Milk and Honey and Dutch Kills. They opened Painkiller Tiki Bar in New York. And the first week of service, they were legitimately crying as they were making drinks because it's so hard. It's so difficult. If you haven't done it, to do Tiki right, you have to measure the ice. You have to measure it the way you measure the liquor. It's so hard, like in the cocktail world. So maybe that's why there aren't more tiki bars. Now here, I will put my hand up and I will say that this is a 100% legitimate, copper-bottomed, gold-plated trend. This is a trend. I don't say it often. I call them cocktail gastropubs. Shady Pines in Sydney was the first one I saw. Mother's Ruin in New York is a great one. This is from the website of Shady Pines. It is, of course, a man riding an enormous rabbit. And if you click on private bookings, you get this page which says, absolutely no bookings, no functions, or door list. Everyone is welcome. That's huge. You can't book out Shady Pines. You can't hire it for a private function. If you own a bar, turning down private functions is like walking past money on the street, right? But they won't do it because they're a pub. You can get great cocktails in there. Same way you can get great cocktails in Mother's Ruin, right? But you can also have a beer and a shot, or just a beer, or a glass of wine, or a cup of tea, or a 7-Up, or whatever. The fact of it is that these cocktail gastropubs fulfill the same function for cocktail bars that pubs do in a certain sense. Let me explain it. About 15 years ago, starting in the UK, chefs, line chefs, sous chefs, who were working in Michelin 3-star restaurants realized they would never be able to get enough money to open their own Michelin 3-star restaurant. So they would buy a pub. They would paint everything white and put in some shitty old chairs and tables, and they would make really good food. But because it was just a pub and they didn't have to pay back a $3 million loan, they could sell the really good food relatively cheaply, and they would sell more easy-to-serve things like beer and easy cocktails and glasses of wine. And that's how gastropubs were born. Cocktail gastropubs are exactly the same. Bartenders realize, fuck, it is going to be so difficult for me to get the money to open my bar. I will need $400,000 or something. But for $50,000, I might be able to rent an old pub, do it up, get a couple of nice bottles behind the bar, make cocktails, make Negronis and Manhattans and, Trinidad Sours and stuff like that. And by being low threshold, they make so much more money. So much more. Because the problem with cocktail bars is that they're cocktail bars. You don't just drop by, right? You got to worry. It's like, fuck, am I dressed okay? Is this, You take somebody to a cocktail bar, a craft cocktail bar, to impress them. You take your wife or your husband or somebody else's wife or husband or your boss, right? Or your staff or somebody from out of town, right? But you don't think, I fancy a beer and a shot. I'm going to go to XYZ bar. And that's limiting. So cocktail gastropubs make enormous amounts of money, and they're a lot of fun. And what you see is, increasingly, people are putting them under one roof. The Dead Rabbit in New York is effectively a cocktail gastropub on the ground floor, more pub, in fact. And then on the first floor, they have the amazing, exquisite, reservation-only cocktail service. And that place, it would make you cry if I told you how much money it makes, but I'll put it this way. After they opened, they spent a lot more money on renovations. They had to put in air conditioning, everything. And every single investor was paid back after 35 months, less than 3 years. That never happens, right? And one of the reasons it makes so much money is they have a cocktail gastropub effectively on the ground floor. So this is the trend of this entire presentation. Happiness Forgets in London is a really good example of one there as well. And they're cropping up everywhere. If you don't think that there's one in Montreal, you should go and open one. And so to the next trend, which is bitterness. The world is going mad for bitter. They're going mad for craft beer, and the craft beer world is a bitter world. There's actually now a forecast shortage of hops. There's so many people who want to have bitterness. But of course, we know bitterness for all the Amaros, all the bitter cocktails, balanced, of course. But you can probably all remember the first time you had a Manhattan or a Negroni and you didn't like it. And over the course of years, you came to like it. The world, possibly because it's drinking slower and less, is drinking better. And we are coming to love bitter flavors for their rich depth and complexity. This is Amor y Amargo. Some of you will know it. It opened as a 1 week pop-up 5 years ago in New York. It's still going strong. I adore this place. A couple of things about Amor y Amargo. They have one type of gin, one type of rum, one type of whiskey, well, one bourbon, one scotch, one brandy. They got 4 or 5 liqueurs and 300 bottles of Amaro. All right. Number 2, no juice. No lemon, no lime, no orange, no cranberry, no juice of any kind. No sugar. No sugar syrup, no sugar cubes, no sugar. Number 4, and a lot of people get this wrong. They say, yeah, they don't have a shaker there. They do have a shaker there. They have one shaker, and they use it to keep the straws in. Right? All the drinks are built. That's it. No shaking, no stirring, no blending. And all the drinks are delicious. If you go in there, it's in the East Village, right next to Death and Company and near Mother of Pearl and places like that. You might think to yourself, is it going to be full of nerdy guys with beards, you know, drinking variations of Negronis? And there's a few of them for sure. But actually, it's mostly full of young people going out in the East Village. There's actually a lot of women that go there. And they're enjoying these delicious yet fairly hardcore drinks because the service of the place, it's so small and intimate, it can only really fit 20 people, is so good it doesn't matter. They now have, you know, the daughters of Sex and the City women, these like 20-year-old, absolutely gorgeous New York girls going in and saying, have you got the new 70-proof Chinar yet? Or will I have to like order the regular one? Right? So bitter flavors of all kinds are being embraced. And that's especially good news for us in the cocktail world. Frozen drinks. If you saw my seminar last year, it tells the cocktail, frozen drinks are back. Delicious frozen drinks made correctly. You can't just throw any old shit into a granita machine, right? But a frozen drink of the day, coincidentally, the Mother's Ruin gastropub is a really good one, is also really quick. You just pour that stuff off. Boom, there you go. Blood orange Negroni. Oop, there you are. Lovely. It takes so much pressure off the bar. If you look up my and Dave's presentation, indeed in his book, Dave worked out the formula to convert a regular cocktail into a frozen cocktail without making it a pile of shit. So if you look that up, you email me afterwards, I'd be happy to send it to you. But frozen drinks are for sure back. At the highest levels, they regained their credibility when it was realized several years ago, to do a good, consistent frozen drink, you need a machine like this. You can't do it one by one in a blender. A blender is a relatively inconsistent thing. So this is the less interesting of all the things I'm saying. Enhanced CRM. I know, this is what you came for, right? Yay. CRM means customer relationship management. Over there on the left, you see Jackson Cannon, who is the owner-operator at the Hawthorne in Boston, the Island Creek Oyster Bar. He's a fantastic guy. And every Monday, they have a staff meeting at his bars. And then it's like, you know, news, updates, maintenance, new cocktail menu. And then they have a 20-minute quiz. They have flashcards with a picture of their regulars on the front. And on the back, their name, kids, job, mistress, cocktail preference, all that. And everybody competes to see who knows the most about all the regulars. It's amazing. You have electronic flashcard systems integrated into things like Open Table. I don't know if you know, but you can make notes about guests on Open Table. At the very highest levels, if you go to a modern 3-star Michelin restaurant, they Google the name of every single customer. Everyone. At 11 Madison Park in New York, on every shift, they have all the staff they need and one extra person called the Dreamweaver. The Dreamweaver's job is to find out what people like, what they dream of, and get it for them. There's a lovely story of a couple there who had made a reservation there, and they'd come to New York, and it was snowing. And the waiter overheard them saying that they'd love to go sledding in Central Park. So the Dreamweaver went out and bought one of those little red plastic sleds. And this is the best bit. This is the 11 Madison Park bit. Then they printed the 11 Madison Park onto a piece of sticky paper and stuck it on the front and tied it with a bow and gave it to them. Right? Now, that's a place where dinner for two with a tasting menu is $1,400, obviously. They have the ability to do that. But you have the ability to know so much more about all your customers. You can Google them. You can look on Facebook. You can look on Twitter. You could find out the last cocktail they had in your friend's bar. And then you could keep track of these things. Not in a scary way. Right? But why else would anybody ever go back to your bar? We have options that make this kind of CRM so easy and platform-wide. So, you could be keeping up with your regulars while you're not even in the bar. And at the most basic level, what wouldn't cost you a single penny is to have flashcards like Jackson Cannon does. And at every single staff meeting, play flashcard bingo. One of my favorite bars in New York is a place called Hudson Malone, founded by a classic New York bartender called Doug Quinn. He's okay at cocktails, but what he's better at is remembering people. After the opening, I'd only ever been in once. I walked in the second time, I sat down, Doug wasn't there, didn't know anybody. Bartender looked me straight in the eye and he said, "Mr. Duff, same beer and shot as the last time?" It was really impressive, right? I've no idea how they do it, but that could be you. And this is a huge thing. This kind of thing is very sexy, but this is what makes perhaps the hugest difference for the least effort. Now, I'm going to be wrapping up shortly. So, Instagram-ready cocktails are absolutely massive, as you well know. And you can like it or hate it, but it's a trend. If you create massively immersive experiences that go beyond, the price of a cocktail or the glass that it's served in, you get incredible returns. So this is me. I thought you'd like to see a picture of me. In the Rick House at the Manhattan Bar at the Four Seasons in Singapore. This is a bar that has its own Rick House. And whenever someone cool like me comes to town, they ask them to make a cocktail into one of their miniature 14-liter barrels. So that's me making a Negroni with G-Vine, Licantini, Rouge, and Campari. They age it in the barrel for 2 months. Then they take it out of the barrel and they put it in glass bottles, which they keep in their barrel cocktail room, which is also gorgeous. And this room is right there. You can see it in the bar. It's so cool. It's Instagram bait. And if you saw that room, you'd say, "Oh wow, can I have some of Sam's Negroni? Or do you think Philip would mind if I had some?" It's amazing. It's so clever. This is from Fairy Tale Bar in Berlin. Mike Meinke of Diageo and his own bar, Trio Bar, helped to create this bar called Fairy Tale Bar. It's like going to an Alice in Wonderland bar. It's amazing. I can't describe it much more than to say, this is the menu, right? It's a music box which you open with a little rabbit there, and you look down into a diorama of an Alice in Wonderland room, right? I brought it along here today, actually. So, again, this is the fucking menu. Right? And when you open it up, so first you have the Alice in Wonderland. in German. I don't know what they're saying. It could be like, let's invade Poland, but right, it's absolutely amazing. But it doesn't even stop there. Here, this is the Alice in Wonderland, like you look at it. All the staff, and I know for a fact you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's how I roll. Get these ultraviolet light torches. And when you shine it on here, there's another cocktail recipe, right? Written in, you can only read it in UV light. It's called The Little Prince of Guatemala. And what it is a little bit, double check the menu, a little bit of Zacapa. I'm going to need that clean jigger again that I mentioned earlier. While you chaps bring it up. Oh, no, wait a sec. I've got it here. There we go. A little bit of orange bitters. A little bit of Grand Marnier. And then it's topped up. Whee! I'm going to go about 5 minutes over, Marilyn. Sorry. With champagne. If you're thinking this is just an excuse for Philip Duff to drink champagne after the seminar, totally right. Phil, can you send us the requirements? Yeah, champagne, baby. Anything else? Meh. So, and a little bit of this. And it doesn't stop there. It's called The Little Prince of Guatemala because if you remember the kids' fairy tale book, The Little Prince, with d'Exupéry, when his plane crashed, it crashed in Guatemala. So this is part of the fairy tale theme. So, fuck, shouldn't have done that. Bar back. Yeah. So this is very much the house style of them. And this is an immersive experience. It goes beyond being a cocktail, and it's relatively easy to set up. The entire bar was set up to actually be a showcase for world-class style drinks. So, fuck, there we go. There we go. Cheers. It's a bit wet on the outside. Sorry about that. Whee! I'm back to the presentation. This is Genuine Liquorette in New York. My friend Eben Freeman opened it. It's a really cool idea. It's a little dive-y kind of a basement space. On left and right, there's all the weirdest stuff you've ever seen. Like, have you ever seen all the flavors of Pinnacle vodka? Right? Or the different variations of Hypnotic, right? Or every flavor of Scotch. Well, they're all there. And you can drink whatever you like, and you only pay for what you drink. They weigh the bottle before you get it or not. You can grab your own beers from a fridge. And they serve cocktails in cans like this, using a tool called the chachunker. The chachunker kind of cuts off the top of the can. This, for instance, is a Maker's Mark and ginger ale. So crushed ice, ginger ale, and the Maker's Mark goes in that way. You can get the same thing with Palomas and all that. It's really quick and easy, almost zero effort, and people go bananas for it. You've probably heard of the excellent bar Nightjar in London. They spend a lot of effort on their presentations and hours of mise en place every day. This is, it's kind of like their chocolate tequila Negroni. This is the, what did he actually call it? I think they just called it General Lee from Bo Mesritz of Tales and Spirits in Amsterdam. He actually created this for a contest, and on the day of the contest, he was sick. So he decided to serve it anyway in his bar. So the garnish for the drink is a remote-controlled Dukes of Hazzard car, right? Which certainly beats a rose petal any day. This is one of my favorites from the Blind Pig in London. It's the Geneva Lopez. And the garnish is a lady with a large arse. A photo of a lady with a large arse. You can't see it very well. I'm not sure if it's an actual photo of Jennifer Lopez. But yeah, pun-based drinks are big. And my finale here, it'll all work, is the KGB from Antonio Lai at Origin Bar in Hong Kong. Have you ever heard the phrase, skills that pay the bills? This is a drink that pays the rent. They sell 2,000 of these every single month at Origin at, I think it's 16 or, no, it's more, it's 18 or 19 Hong Kong dollars. This one cocktail quite literally pays the rent for his bar, right? It's a very nice kind of a gin sour thing, served in a bathtub with a rubber ducky and a bit of grape tea air and caviar, which JP has very kindly prepared for me. So that'll be the last drink that I make here today, which will probably be great news for everybody. There we go. So, loads of gin. This is made with Kyoho grape liqueur, which is not available in Canada. So what we did was, what kind of grape juice was it, JP? Concord. It was Concord, right? This is the right bottle, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Thought so. We actually made it by mixing half and half Concord grape juice and half Ciroc, and then we just sweetened it a little bit. It comes remarkably close, believe it or not. A spot of lemon juice. A little bit of white grape juice. Our elderflower syrup again. Shake with some shitty melted ice. It's just like an IBA contest, isn't it? All the younger people in the audience are like, what's the IBA? And then serve in a bathtub. Right? It's already working. How cool is this? By the way, if you happen to be buying these, don't get the like miniature doll's house bathtub because they all have holes in them. What you want to get is like a soap dish that works like this. Antonio's actually had his own one made, which says Origin on it. There we go. Lovely. And then you spoon over a bit of the old... so we made a kind of a grape tea caviar with alginate. There we go. So we put that into the bathtub. And then we're going to whip up just a little bit more of our grape tea air. If I maybe just a little bit more of that. There. Obviously, we could do this all day, but I've got to get to lunch. So, it's also an extremely approachable cocktail. And that's something to think about. Your signature cocktail probably should not be a balls out Negroni or something like that. Something like an Irish coffee, or indeed a pleasant kind of sweet sour drink like this. And it's garnished with a miniature rubber duck. If you have to order these from Amazon, you can only get them in like bags of 18. So my daughter now has 16 miniature rubber ducks, and I'm going to put the other 2 on there. And that's me. Over time, there's the presentation. Thank you. Cheers.